All right, so this is just an update video on the snowstorm that's going to be affecting New England this weekend. I think light snow flurries start maybe mid-evening for southern New England, and then a steadier, heavier snow moves its way from southwest to northeast uh, sometime close to midnight on late Saturday into Sunday, and that continues through about mid-evening on Sunday. So about a 18 to 20 hour event in total. All right, this one model we're looking at is the HRRR. It's a high resolution model. This is surface temperature with wind barbs, and you can see the storm right here. There's our low pressure. Cold air in northern New England being brought down with the freezing line cutting through the Merrimack Valley through Worcester to Hartford. That's going to slowly collapse southeastward as the storm moves further east. So some areas that might start as wet snow or rain, like in on the south coast or in southeast Massachusetts, might end up with at least a dusting of snow for Cape and the Islands, and possibly 3 to 6 inches for South Shore Massachusetts. Areas north west of Boston, um, near this freezing line, are going to stay predominantly snow. Even if it's 33, 34 degrees, it's still going to be snow in those areas because the temperatures drop very quickly as you go higher up in the atmosphere. So there's not going to be much time for the snow to melt. Um, yeah, one thing that's still a wild card. This storm track is the furthest north out of all the models. Most of the other storm tracks are probably about 30 to 40 miles south of this. So this model, if we look at the total snowfall, are largely missing in southeast Massachusetts, with only a dusting to a couple inches there. But you can see that really sharp gradient northwest of Boston, and some of these high res models kind of are very sensitive to topography and overdo it a little bit. You see a 26 up there near the White Mountains. That might be overdone a little bit, but there still could be some 18 inch reports in some of the higher terrain of New Hampshire and Vermont. There also seems to be a bit of some higher numbers here in York County, Maine, and a lot of the models do have that, not just this one model. So that might be one of the bullseyes. That, or possibly Hillsborough County area, could be 12 to 18 inches in that area. But generally, I think a 6 to 12 through most of the region. Um, we weren't sure earlier if these higher totals are going to make it as far north as the as northern New Hampshire and Vermont, but it looks like those 6 to 12 inch snowfall accumulations will be making their way to the Canadian border. Um, this is another high res model. This is the NAM, um, 3 kilometer. You can see down here in the Taunton, Brockton, Duxbury area some 5 to 7 inch totals, which were missing from the HRR model. That's because this storm's track is going to be a bit further south than that other model. Still missing anything significant on Cape of the Islands, but a lot of that snow that does fall is going to melt on contact there because it's going to be in the upper 30s for much of the storm. But they still could get one good heavy band on the tail end of the storm Sunday afternoon. Looking at the European model and the GFS, these are the global models. They're going to be a bit more uniform with their coverage, but you can see some higher totals here in parts of southern New Hampshire and the higher terrain of Vermont. That's the Euro, and here's the GFS. Looks pretty similar. Also, kind of got that York County bullseye. Um, Only about a foot there, but it's a bit lower than some of the other models. But it really could. It's really going to depend on the quality of the snow. If any is really heavy and wet, which I think it could be at least to the start in parts of Massachusetts. Um, a lot of it could compress, and then even though northern New England isn't getting as much total precipitation, they're getting about half of what southern New England is getting. There's going to be a much drier, fluffier snow, so it's going to add up quicker up there. One other thing to take into account, if you're on the coast especially, is going to be the wind. Most of us aren't going to see too much in the way of wind, but about noon through early afternoon, we start to see some higher gusts, 30, 40 miles an hour through the Merrimack Valley, Boston area, and then into the evening, that last heavy band of snow that's going to make its way through southeast Massachusetts could bring some 50 to 60 mile an hour wind gusts with it. Technically, it could even briefly be some blizzard conditions there. Although I wouldn't call it a blizzard, you would need 3 consecutive hours of those conditions, which I don't think we're going to get there. Anyways, still a little bit of wiggle room with the track, not too much, but some nuances to iron out. And besides that, it looks like a pretty sure thing of a significant snow event Sunday of 6 to 12 inches with a few 12 to 16 inch totals in the higher terrain and parts of Maine, New Hampshire, and Western Mass. So if anything changes, we'll keep you posted. Oh, and one last thing, our Microsoft Paint map. So this is kind of our current depiction of where we think the heaviest snow is going to be. We have an 8 to 14 swath that includes parts of southern Maine, southern New Hampshire, the Merrimack Valley into the Worcester Hills, and then the Berkshires and Green Mountains. Otherwise, 6 plus, and then southeast Mass and Rhode Island still a bit uncertain. Some of these numbers might need to be bumped up a tad.